Okay, so 8-1 was just your general series and sequences, right? And then summation, where you just plug in the numbers and then add them at the end. When we got to 8-2, we started talking specifically about arithmetic sequences. So the two formulas that you need for arithmetic are the a sub n equals a1 plus d times n minus 1, or n minus 1 times d. Okay, this is how you find the nth term. But again, it has to be arithmetic. And then there was the partial sum. And this is the n over 2 times first plus last. And this is partial sum. Again, it has to be arithmetic. So you can't do this with something that is raised to a power. You can't do this something to, like that has a combination of an exponent when you're not adding or subtracting the same number each time. So there's not a common difference. So for number 1, it says to determine whether or not the sequence is arithmetic. If it is, find the common difference. So for these, you're just trying to figure out, is it adding or subtracting from the same number each time? So from 5 to 3 to 1 to -1 to -3, are we increasing or decreasing by the same integer? That's supposed to be the easy one, folks. Yeah, good. So the answer is yes. And the D is -2. It's important to have that sign on. Obviously, if it was increasing, it would be a +2, but it's decreasing, so it's a -2. Number 2 says write the first 5 terms of the arithmetic sequence. So we start with 8, and then because D is a +3, we increase by 3 each time. So 8 plus 3 is 11, 11 plus 3 is 14, 14 plus 3 is 17, 17 plus 3 is 20, and it wanted the first 5. So be careful here, you have to include that A1, and that's what people mistakenly forget on these, okay? A1 is part of the sequence. Number 3 says use the information from number 2 to find the formula for A sub n for the arithmetic sequence, and then find the sum of the first 25 terms of the sequence. So I want to find, obviously, my formula for A sub n. If D is +3 and A sub 1 is 8, then AN is 8 plus 3 times n minus 1. Now I can leave it like that, or I can distribute this out, and I'd get A sub n equals 8 plus 3n minus 3. A sub n equals 5 plus 3n. So this would be the most simplified form of A sub n. And then when I want to find the first 25 terms in this sequence, this is a partial sum. So n over 2 times first plus last. So the number of terms is 25, 25 over 2. The first term is my A1, which is 8. The last term is A sub 25. So I want to find A25 by doing 5 plus 3 times 25, 5 plus 75, which is 80. What you don't want to do is have to plug in or add 3 25 times. Okay, you wouldn't have time to do that. So you want to make sure you know how to find A sub n and then find that last term. So I'd get 12.5 times 88, which is 1100. That's the sum of the first 25 terms. So on a question like this, like as far as a quiz goes, it's going to ask you to find the formula. That would be one blank. You would enter in the formula 5 plus 3n, and then it would ask you to find the sum, and that would be the second blank. Questions on that one? All right, number 4, find the sum of the first 50 positive multiples of 5. So this is an arithmetic because I'd be adding 5 each time. The number of terms over 2 times first plus last is what I want to do. What's the number of terms in the first 50 positive multiples of 5? What's the number of terms? 50. What's the first multiple of 5? 5. What's the 50th multiple of 5? 250. So 50 times 5, sorry. So I'd get 25 times 255. And I get 6,375. Yeah.
How'd you get the 250?
So the 50th one would be 50 times 5.
Oh, okay.
If it was 20th, it'd be 20 times 5. If it's 30th, it's 30 times 5.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So these are like usually grade standardized test questions because you can actually find that by doing 5 plus 10 plus 15 plus 20 plus 25. But you lose all that time, right? So obviously they love questions in which if you know what you're doing, you can save time. And that's one of them. All right, then number 5 says find the partial sum. The bottom number is where we start, the top number is where we stop. So we would be plugging in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and adding them all together if this wasn't arithmetic. So if this was just a standard like sum, I would plug in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I would take and add all those numbers together. Because this is arithmetic, we can use the same thing, n over 2, first plus last. So what is n? What's the number of terms? 10. And that is only because the bottom is 1. Remember, if the bottom is not 1, it gets adjusted, which I'll show you in a second. So that would be 10 over 2. The first term, I'm going to plug 1 in. So 2 times 1 minus 3, 2 minus 3, negative 1. The last term, I'm going to plug the number on the top, which is 10 in. 2 times 10 minus 3, 20 minus 3, which is 17. And I'd get 5 times 16, which is 80. Again, I would get the same answer by plugging in 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 9, then 10, and adding them all together, but you would have run out of time on your quiz or your test. So make sure you know the difference. So what would have happened if it had said n equals 0 and then 10 at the top? How does that change things?
There would be 11 terms.
Good. There'd be one more term than there was before, so there'd be 11 terms. Go to Maya. And the first term I would plug 0 in. And the last term I would plug 10 in. So pay attention to the number on the bottom. If the number on the bottom is 1, then the number at the top is the number of terms. But if it is less than 1, then it is that many minus it. And if it's bigger than 1, if this said n equals 2 here, now I'd have 9 terms, one less term, because you're going from 2 to 10. So if the bottom number is 1, like if you want to look at it, the top number, it's the top minus the bottom plus 1. If it's 1, it's super easy. But if it adjusts, if it's 0, obviously it goes up by 1. If it's 2, it goes down by 1. So just keep that in mind. Okay, these questions came up on homework. So this is number 7. Number 7 says find the sum of the finite arithmetic sequence, the sum of the integers from negative 40 to 50. So this one's kind of tricky because you go from negative 40 all the way to 50. And you can't just say 50 minus a negative 40, there's 90 terms there because you're missing the 0. From 1 to 50 is 50. From negative 40 to negative 1 is 40, but 0 is in between there. So the number of terms is actually 91. So 91 over 2. So think about 1 to 50. How many terms are there? 50. And from negative 40 to negative 1, there'd be 40. But 0 falls in between them. So when we start at 1 and we end at a number, it's that number. But if we start at 0 and we go to that number, we have to add 1. Because if you count from 0 to 10, you get 11. Does that make sense?
Just add those two.
You can't because it's going from negative 40 to 0. Or for negative.
If it was positive.
If it was positive, like if it said from 20 to 50, then it's 30. Right, it's because it went negative that you included 0. So then the first term is negative 40 and the last term is 50. And then I'd get, that's 45.5 times 10, which is 455. Number 8 says find the indicated nth partial sum of the arithmetic sequence. So the first thing you need to do is figure out, well, we're given n this time, right? We have to figure out what d is. So 7.1 minus 6.7, 6.7 minus 6.3, 6.3 minus 5.9. That makes your d negative 0.4. So if this is the first term of my sequence, then a sub n equals 7.1 minus 0.4 times n minus 1. 7.4 minus 0.4n plus 0.4 gives me a sub n is 7.5 minus 0.4n. So that's the formula for a sub n. So I have the first, right? So I have the number of terms over 2 times first plus last. The number of terms is 17. The first term is 7.1. I have to figure out what the 17th term is. So I take 7.5 minus 0.4 times 17. 7.5 minus 6.8, which is 0.7. And then I get 8.5 times 7.8, 66.3. So this time they gave you the first, they gave you the number, and you had 4 terms in the sequence, so you had enough information to figure out what D is, but then you got to find your equation to find the last. So number 7 on the homework from 8-2 said find the sum of the finite arithmetic sequence, and this is the sum of the integers from negative 40 to 50. So what's tricky here is obviously it's the same equation, n over 2 and then first plus last. The easy part is the first is negative 40 and the last is 50. The harder part this time is that it's what's the number of terms from negative 40 to 50. So if I had said 1 to 50, how many terms would there be? 50, right? If I said negative 40 to negative 1, it would be 40. But we have a 0 in between those, which is why this is one more than that. So this is actually 91 terms. Does that make sense? So if I had said from 0 to 50, there's actually 51 terms, right? If you start with 1, the end is the number of terms. But if you start with 0, then it's one more than that. Does that make sense? Okay. So then this becomes 45.5 times 10, which is the 455. Number 8 here says find the indicated nth partial sum of the arithmetic sequence. So the first thing I have to do is, first of all, it's arithmetic and it says partial sum. So I know that formula because once we get into 8.3, which is geometric, we have a new formula. So you want to make sure you're looking for the word that says arithmetic, okay, or partial sum. So I have n over 2 first plus last. So I have the n, it gives it to me, it's 15 over 2. The first term I've got, it's 6.3. Now the last one is what I don't have. That's what that dot, dot, dot is, right? I don't have it. So what I need to do is figure out what a sub n is using a1 plus d times n minus 1. a1 is at 6.3 again. The common difference, so if I go from 6.3 to 5.7, 5.7 to 5.1, 5.1 to 4.5, what's my d? Negative 0.6. So this would be a negative 0.6 times n minus 1. I'd get 6.3 minus 0.6n plus 0.6. And I'd get 6.9 minus 0.6n. So that's your a sub n. Now to find the 15th term, I just plug 15 in to there. 6.9 minus 0.6 times 15. 6.9 minus 90. 1 decimal place. So 9. And then I'd get negative 2.1. I feel like my brain's not working this funny. Did I do that right? 6.9 minus 0.6 times 15, yeah. And then 6.3 minus 2.1 is 4.2, and 7.5 times 4.2 is 31.5. So 3 pieces of information you need to know for the sum, and that is the number of terms, the first term, and the last term. questions on that one? Okay, so, yeah. I'm sorry. You can tell him I also messaged him that I can't let him in once I've done the attendance. I messaged him.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, thank you though. If you want, Stefan, when I give the class kick code, if you want to share that with him, and then at least he can get in there and he's not missing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the other thing I want to show you is that I want to review the 2 ways to do a sum on your graphing utility. You won't get to do this on your quiz or your test because you'll use just I'll do the same thing where you use just the the lockdown 4 function calculator. You definitely can't use scientifics this time because a lot of scientifics have summation on it. So you'll only be allowed to use the lockdown calculator that we used the last time, or a 4 function one if you're in the building. If you have a 4 function one, you can do that. Otherwise, you'll use the lockdown one. But I want to show you the 2 ways that you can do a summation. So let's say I've got, that's the sloppiest. N equals 1, and then this is like 12, and then it's 2n plus 4. Let's just say it's like this, okay? I'm going to show you first on like the newer version, and then I'm actually going to show you on the older version because it's completely different. So this is the 84 plus. On this calculator, you have to go to math, and you have to scroll all the way down to 0 where it says summation. And you hit enter, and then it pops up like this. So the little a is telling you what variable do you want to use, and you could just use x. So I'm going to do x equals whatever that first number is, which is 1, arrow over 12 goes at the top, arrow over 2n plus 4, and then hit enter, and there's your summation. So that's 204. On the older graphing utility, thank you, it's completely different. So you're going to want to pay attention if you've got it. So for this one, you actually have to go to 2 menus. You're going to go to, the first one is, they're both underneath list, which is second stat, gets you the list menu. You're going to scroll over to where it says math. You're going to go down to 5 where it says sum. Then you're going to hit second stat again. This time you're going to go over to ops, and you're going to scroll down to where it says sequence. So now you have to give the sequence, right? Did I do that order? Right? I just had a Google list. Hang on. Yep, first you give the equation. So that 2x plus 4, because that was our equation, comma, then you give the number on the bottom. Right? When did I do the x at the end? Sorry, first you do the equation, then you do the x, comma, then you do the number on the bottom, which in this case is 1. Then you do the number on the top, which in this case is 12. And then you always end with a comma 1 because that's how many increments we go up. Hit enter, and there's the same sum. So again, sum, then sequence, then the equation, then the variable x, then the number on the bottom, then the number on the top, and then 1. This is simply so that you can check your answers, however, because you won't be able to use a graphing utility on this test or quiz, so keep that in mind. Okay, any questions for me going back to 8.1 even? Perfect. All right, I'm going to give you a class kick. There's 8 review questions for you to work on. And then again, tomorrow we're going to do 8.3. Friday we'll review Monday quiz on 8.1, 8.2, 8.3. And that's the last quiz in the 3rd quarter. It's also your last major grade in the 3rd quarter, obviously, once I get the other ones in. Yep. Yeah, so that's why the video one kind of will work as an optional thing. All right, then number 10 said use a graphing utility to find the partial sum. So I'm going to show you how to use it with the graphing utility, and then we'll do it Let me stop share. We'll do it also. You could do this one by hand. Okay, so this is using the graphing utility. I go to math, and I go all the way down to the 0, and that's a summation. I hit that. Then the variable in my, and the question is n, but it doesn't matter. I can use the x. So the x variable button is here. That's x, and it starts at 0. I arrow over, it brings me to the top. It stops at 70 on this question. And then I arrow over, and it's 70 minus 2, my variable again, which is x. Hit enter. Hey, it froze. Oh.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, why did it? I'm gonna have to anyways, because my video just stopped. All right, so I go math, right? Well, that's why it stopped. So I went to math, I went to summation. I need it to be, the bottom is x equals 0. It says n, but that's just a variable, so it doesn't matter which one I use, x. And then 0. Arrow over, and it brings you to the top. That's 70. Arrow over, and it's 70 minus 2, my variable, which is x. Hit enter, and there's my summation.
Why is it 0?
So without a calculator, because that's how you're going to have to do it, right? If I did n over 2 times first plus last. Okay, n, because it starts at 0 and it goes to 70, it's one more. So it'd be 71. The first, I take 0 and plug it in. So 70 minus 2 times 0 is 70 minus 0, which is 70. And the last, I take 70 and plug it in. 70 minus 2 times 70, 70 minus 140, negative 70. So then this is 35.5, but this is negative 70 plus 70, 0. So you want to know how to do that without your calculator because you won't have it. Questions? All right, we've got a couple minutes. Well, not just a couple minutes. We've got like 15 minutes left. So I have a class kick that just has a couple of review questions from 8.1 to 8.2. That's what we're going to work on now. I'll go over that at the end. And then again, remember tomorrow that we're going to shift into 8.3. Oh, so I'm just going to go real fast through these. The first one almost everybody got right. There was a couple mistakes along the way, but I kind of circled them. Okay, I didn't get all the way through all 8, but I got through most of them. And then same thing here. Find the indicated term. Almost everybody got this one right. So good job. You're just plugging in the there. The first 4 terms define recursively. Remember, this builds on the one that comes before it. So they have to give you the first one, and that first one is part of your answer. So 15 is my first one. Then I have to take 2 times 15 plus 3 got 33. Take 33, multiply it times 2 to get, and add 3 got 69. And then take 69, multiply it times 2, and add 3, and you get 141. And then the 4 terms include the first one they give you. So some of you went too far. Just be careful. You got extra information you don't need, and you missed the 15. The 15 would have to be part of your answer. If this was on a Canvas quiz, it would literally be typed in just like that, no spaces. Then came finding the sum. So this is not arithmetic. You have to be careful, okay? It will usually say find the partial sum if it's arithmetic. If it doesn't say that, it's usually an indication that you cannot find it using the first and last formula. If I did 3 to the power, it's not adding the same thing each time. So anything that's raised to a power, you can't use the arithmetic, the first and the last partial sum formula. So you start at the bottom, I plug in 3, then I plug in 4, then I plug in 5, then I plug in 6, and stop. So start at the bottom, stop at the top. Add them all together, and you get 1080. So there was a couple that went too far, and then there was a couple that just like when you're adding, made silly mistakes, so be careful there. Then came find the formula for a sub n for the arithmetic sequence, and then find the indicated term. So this is a 2-part question, and if this was on a Canvas quiz, it would give you 2 blanks. You have to make sure you have both parts. A sub n equals 10 minus 2n is your equation. And then you want to find a 11, which is negative 12. So almost everybody got the negative 12, but make sure you give both parts. The sum of the first 30 multiples of 4, my first one would be 4. The last one would be 4 times 30, which is 120. And then there are 30 terms in that sequence. So 30 over 2 times 4 plus 120 should have given you 1860. And I was like mid-grading those when we stopped. So overall, pretty good on those. Finding the partial sum. This is arithmetic. Let me go back. So I do n over 2 times first plus last. The n at the bottom is 1, which means the top number is my n. That's 30. 30 over 2, take the 1, plug it in to get the first, and it should be 7. Take the 30, plug it in to get the last, and you should get 94. And then 15 times 101 is 1515. So this was arithmetic. When you're adding the same thing each time, obviously it's arithmetic. And the last one, this time it's still arithmetic, it's still a partial sum, but notice that the n on the bottom is not 1, so I can't just say the number at the top is n. The shortcut here is the top number minus the bottom number plus 1. So if you want to figure out how many terms are in a series or sequence when you're doing the summation, it's the top minus the bottom plus 1. So 20 minus 3 is 17. 17 plus 1 is 18 terms in this sequence. So 18 over 2. First one I get by plugging in 3, and that's 8. Last one I get by plugging in 20, and that's 59. 9 times 67 is 603. So now take a moment to export your class kick to Notability so you have this saved. This is a great review for your quiz. Again, quiz will be Monday. We'll add on 8.3, which we'll do tomorrow, but this is a great review for that. So make sure you export it into Notability. All right, folks, have a fantastic day. I will see you tomorrow.
And what would you do if it's 0 at the bottom?
If it was 0 at the bottom, it'd be one more than the number.
Just be one more than
Yep.
the number. Okay.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.